Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. We are continuing from the second canto, the 9th chapter, entitled Answers by Citing the Lord's Versions. And we are continuing text number 35, yes, the third of the 4 Chatur Shlokis. The Chatur Shlokis are the summary of the entire Srimad Bhagavatam as the Lord spoke to Lord Brahma. He was intelligent enough, Lord Brahma, to understand the totality of the Srimad Bhagavatam by hearing 4 verses. Just juxtapose that to today. Our intelligence is so minuscule that the entire Bhagavatam has been expanded from 4 verses to 18,000 verses, and still, even at 18,000 verse explanation, we're unable to understand it, and we have to have the very elaborate purports by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada, which is probably 3, 4, 5 times more volume than the 18,000 verses. And still we have difficulty in understanding it. And it's just symptomatic of this period of Kali Yuga, where the intelligence of people in general is very, very small. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Yathā mahānti bhūtāni. Yathā mahānti bhūtāni. Bhūteṣūccāvaceṣu. Bhūteṣūccāvaceṣv. Praviṣṭāni apraviṣṭāni. Tathā teṣu na teṣu aham. Yathā mahānti bhūtāni. Bhūteṣūccāvaceṣv. Praviṣṭāni apraviṣṭāni. Tathā teṣu na teṣvaham. Yathā mahānti bhūtāni. Bhūteṣūccāvaceṣv. Praviṣṭāni apraviṣṭāni. Tathā teṣu na teṣvaham. Chant, please.
Yathā mahānti bhūtāni.
Yathā mahānti bhūtāni.
Bhūteṣūccāvaceṣv.
Praviṣṭāni apraviṣṭāni.
Tathā teṣu na teṣvaham.
Tathā teṣu na teṣvaham.
Yathā mahānti bhūtāni.
Yathā mahānti bhūtāni.
Bhūteṣūccāvaceṣv.
Bhūteṣūccāvaceṣv.
Praviṣṭāni apraviṣṭāni.
Praviṣṭāni apraviṣṭāni.
Tathā teṣu na teṣvaham.
Tathā teṣu na teṣvaham.
Yathā mahānti bhūtāni.
Yathā mahānti bhūtāni.
Bhūteṣu
bhūteṣūccāvaceṣv,
praviṣṭāni apraviṣṭāni
praviṣṭāni apraviṣṭāni,
tathā teṣu na teṣu aham
bhūtāni, anyone else? Yathā mahānti bhūtāni bhūteṣūccāvaceṣv, praviṣṭāni apraviṣṭāni, tathā teṣu na teṣu aham. Yathā, just as mahānti, the universal, bhūtāni, elements, bhūteṣu, bhūteṣu ucca-avaceṣu, in the minute and gigantic, anu, after, praviṣṭāni, entered, apraviṣṭāni, not entered, tathā, so, teṣu, in them, na, not, teṣu, in them, aham, myself. Translation. Yes. O Brahma, please know that the universal elements enter into the cosmos and at the same time do not enter into the cosmos. Similarly, I myself also exist within everything created, and at the same time I am outside of everything. So we started this verse yesterday. It is a long purport. I was requested to do basically the second half. For those of you who have cell phones with the verses in them, I'm starting with the paragraph, therefore, although he is present, about halfway through. Therefore, although he is present in every atom, the Supreme Personality of Godhead may not be visible to the dry speculators. Still, the mystery is unfolded before the eyes of the pure devotees, because their eyes are anointed with love of Godhead. And this love of Godhead can be attained only by the practice of transcendental loving service of the Lord, and nothing else. The vision of the devotees is not ordinary. It is purified by the process of devotional service. In other words, as the universal elements are both within and without, similarly the Lord's name, form, quality, pastimes, entourage, etc., as they are described in the revealed scriptures or as performed in the Vaikuṇṭhalokas, far, far beyond the material cosmic manifestation, are factually being televised in the heart of the devotee. Interesting analogy there. They're being televised into the heart of the pure devotees. The man with a poor fund of knowledge cannot understand, although by material science one can see things far away by means of television. Factually, the spiritually developed person is able to have the television of the kingdom of God always reflected within his heart. That is the mystery of knowledge of the personality of Godhead. The Lord can award anyone and everyone liberation, or mukti, from the bondage of material existence, yet he rarely awards the privilege of love of Godhead, as confirmed by Narada. Muktim didhati karchit smana bhakti yogam. This transcendental devotional service of the Lord is so wonderful that the occupation keeps the deserving devotee always wrapped in psychological activities without deviation from the absolute truth. Thus, love of Godhead, developed in the heart of the devotee, is a great mystery. Brahmaji previously told Narada that the desires of Brahmaji are never unfulfilled because he is always absorbed in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. Nor has he any desire in his heart save and except the transcendental service of the Lord. That is the beauty and mystery of the process of bhakti yoga. As the Lord's desire is infallible because he is achyuta, similarly the desires of the devotees in the transcendental service of the Lord are also achyuta, infallible. This is very difficult, however, for the layman to understand without knowledge of the mystery of devotional service, as it is very difficult to know the potency of touchstone. As touchstone is rarely found, a pure devotee of the Lord is also rarely to be seen, even amongst millions of liberated souls. Kotishu api mahamune. Out of all kinds of perfections attained by the process of knowledge, yoga perfection and devotional service is the highest of all, and the most mysterious also, even more mysterious than the 8 kinds of mystic perfection attained by the process of yogic performances. In the Bhagavad Gita 1864, the Lord therefore advises Arjuna about this bhakti yoga. Sarva guyatamang bhuya shrenu me paramang vachaha. Just hear from me again about the most confidential part of the instructions in Bhagavad Gita. The same was confirmed by Brahmaji to Narada in the following words. Idang bhagavatam nama yan me bhagavato ditam sangrahoyam vibhutinam tvadeta vipulikuru. Brahmaji said to Narada, whatever I have spoken to you about the Bhagavatam was explained to me by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and I am advising you to expand these topics nicely so that people may easily understand the mysterious bhakti yoga by transcendental loving service to the Lord. It is to be noted here that the mystery of bhakti yoga was disclosed to Brahmaji by the Lord himself. Brahmaji explained the same mystery to Narada. Narada explained it to Vyasa. Vyasa explained it to Shukadeva Goswami, and that same knowledge is coming down in the unalloyed chain of disciplic succession. If one is fortunate enough to have received the knowledge in the transcendental disciplic succession, surely he will have the chance to understand the mystery of the Lord and that of the Srimad Bhagavatam, the sound incarnation of the Lord. Haribol. So we are all greatly fortunate that Srila Prabhupada has further expanded it and explained it for our benefit, and we have the very, very rare opportunity to have this literary incarnation of the Lord in our home by simply spending a few dollars and getting a set of Bhagavatams and having them within our home. But having them in our home, while it's extraordinarily wonderful, it is not sufficient, because we need to apply our intelligence and humility to the service of Bhagavatam to try to understand this great mystery of the Lord and devotional service. So I will read the translation once again. Please repeat. O Brahma, please know that the universal elements enter into the cosmos and at the same time do not enter into the cosmos. Similarly, I myself also exist within everything created, and at the same time I am outside of everything. Om Gyantimirandasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurumudangina Tadasmai Shri Gurave Namah Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Skapilamena Bhutale Svayam Upakaramayam Dadati Svabhadandekam Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaura Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So here in the second half of the purport, Srila Prabhupada is making very, very wonderful explanation about the mystery, the great mystery of how we can understand the science of God. Now, people in general will be surprised to hear the word science and God in the same sentence, and especially a little bewildered to hear that there is a science of God, and there is a science of love, and not just ordinary love, but loving God. And this science is very elaborately described in the Vedic scriptures, but specifically in the Vaishnava scriptures, and even more specifically in the pages of Srimad Bhagavatam and Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. In Bhagavad Gita, Krishna gives us the basics, the ABCs of spiritual life, beginning from we're not this body, we are spirit, soul within the body, and concluding with just abandon all varieties of speculation, all varieties of religion, and simply surrender to me, to Krishna. This is the conclusion of his presentation to Arjuna. But who amongst us can surrender to Krishna so easily? Arjuna was highly, highly qualified. And yet he himself declared to Krishna, this process that you're describing, that you're recommending that I follow, I can't follow this. I can't do this. And he was extraordinarily qualified compared to us. That there's no comparison between our qualifications and Arjuna's qualifications. And understanding this, the Lord, out of great compassion and love for us, appeared in the form of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and inculcated this process of Krishna consciousness, whereby we simply chant the holy names of the Lord, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And we can very easily awaken this dormant, pure love of God which is lying in our heart. I say dormant because it exists there naturally and eternally. Just like a baby bird fresh out of the egg has the dormant ability to fly. And after a certain period of time, just a few days, that dormancy is overcome and the ability to fly is awakened within the body of the bird. So in the same way, by the process of hearing and chanting the holy name of the Lord, our love for God, which is eternally within our heart, as is the Lord himself, it's awakened. And we understand just our position in relationship with the Lord. We understand our position in relationship with the material nature, material energy of the Lord, and all the other innumerable energies of the Lord. And we understand the relationships between one another, between ourselves and the Lord's creation. But more specifically, we understand the process of how to go back home, back to Godhead. So we never have to take birth in this material world again. And Srila Prabhupada cautions us that we need to actually have a very sober understanding of the miserable condition of this material body. Because part of the energy of Maya, the material energy, is deluding. She covers our knowledge. She covers our intelligence. So we become forgetful. And in a forgetful state, the urge to enjoy, which is the characteristics of the soul and pure consciousness, becomes manifest through this body and through this mind, and we try to, through our material senses, seek that enjoyment. But it's not available to us. It's a phantasmagoria. It's like the illusion, the mirage of water in the desert, thinking that we can derive ultimate happiness through these minds, through these senses. It's simply a trick of the material nature, as much as the illusion of water in the desert. It compels, it pushes the person or the animal towards that mirage, thinking that, when I get there, my thirst will finally be satisfied. But it's illusory. And in exactly the same way, Maya is pushing or alluring us through the material energy to try to enjoy what ultimately leads to our death, not our spirit soul, but the death of the body, and ultimately rebirth in another species according to the nature of our activities in this lifetime. If we perform pious activities, we will be awarded birth in the heavenly planets. If we perform impious activities, we will be similarly awarded with birth in the lower planets, as a lower species, as an animal, as a plant, as an aquatic. And then through the process of evolution, we'll gradually have to take birth from one species to the next, to the next, to the next, to the next. Bhagavatam explains that there are 900,000 species of aquatics, something like 1.1 million species of birds, 2 million species of animals, something like this. And according to our, what's the word I'm looking for? The punishment that we are awarded by Yamaraj because of our impious activities, however low we have to take birth, we have to take subsequent birth through every one of those species to get back to where we are today. 400,000 species of human beings, but of those 400,000 species, only a few are actually on the human platform. Because unless and until we accept and follow the principles described in the Vedic literature, we are actually animal living in a human form, which is what most of the society worldwide is. They're animals living in the human species because they have no intelligence to understand the value of devotional service. They have no determination to follow the principles of devotional service because they are lacking in pious activities. And therefore the Lord, in the form of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, out of unlimited compassion and love, He came some 550 years ago to propagate this chanting of Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare, which is the sublime and easy method to awaken our pure love of God. And even then, it's not easy. Prabhupada says that the process of devotional service, although it's simple, chant Hare Krishna, take only Krishna Prasad, engage your mind in the activity of the Lord, surround yourself with the association of devotees, chant, dance, take Krishna Prasad, be happy. To apply ourselves properly to this simple process is very difficult because we're so attached to our mental conceptions, to our false identity of who we are. We have so many desires that are pushing us, not just from this life, but from countless lives behind us. We carry them from one birth to the next. So how can we possibly understand the Supreme Personality of Godhead? In the beginning of Bhagavatam, it explains the characteristics of this Kali Yuga. Manda sumanda matayor mandi bhagya. That people are short-lived. Technically we're supposed to live to 100 years, but, practically it's been reduced to 70, 80 years old. It's rare that people live much beyond 80. Our memories are very poor, our intelligence is very weak, and we are allured, attracted by the material energy to do so many other things. And even when we want to dedicate ourselves fully to the process of devotional service, as husbands we have so many different responsibilities. As wives and mothers we have other different responsibilities. As children we have responsibilities. As employees we have responsibilities. As employers we have responsibilities. As citizens of a particular country we have responsibilities. As disciples of spiritual masters we have so many additional responsibilities. Where is the time? Where is the determination? Where is the desire? It's so hard. And that's why we have to absorb our mind always in thoughts of the Lord, by remembering His transcendental activities, by remembering His pastimes, by speaking these to others. By speaking them, we will be able to remember them. Shravanam Kirtanam, which is followed by Vishnu Smaranam, remembrance of the Lord. First we hear properly, then we repeat what we've heard according to our understanding. And then by doing so, we're able to remember the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And as we achieve perfection in this process, we will be able to see the presence of the Lord everywhere. Within the heart of every living entity, within every atom, between every atom. And as Prabhupada explained in this purport, this is a great mystery. And for the layperson, it is practically impossible for them to understand how this is possible. Earlier in the first half of this purport, Srila Prabhupada quotes 3 verses from the Brahmā-saṁhitā. The third one, Pramanjana Churta Bhakti Vilochanena, that the eyes of the pure devotees, they're smeared with the ointment of love. And therefore, with this ointment of love, we can see the Supreme Personality of Godhead everywhere. Just like a mother with a child. Her heart, her mind, all her senses are absorbed in caring for this child. It always amazes me that, a baby, the strength of their vocal cords is amazing, and B, that a mother can immediately distinguish the scream of her child from the scream of every other child. She knows it because she has such deep love for that child. I'll hear in the lobby, there's so many different pairs of shoes. When I look at the shoes, I don't know who they belong to. I have no relationship with the owner of the shoes, therefore the shoes are simply shoes to me. But when the mother or the father sees shoes of their child, they immediately remember their child because of love. So in exactly the same way, when the devotee awakens their dormant love of God in their heart, we can see the Supreme Personality of Godhead anywhere and everywhere. Because all the energies belong to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Ishvara Parama Krishna Satchidananda Vigraha Anadi Adi Govinda Sarva Karana Karanam. That the Supreme Lord, this is the prayer, the first prayer of Lord Brahma after the Lord revealed to him his supreme abode, Krishnaloka, Gokula, in the spiritual world on the planet of Krishnaloka. And in the 5th chapter of Brahma-saṁhitā, which is the only chapter that is manifest any longer, Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur said that there's 100 chapters in the Brahma-saṁhitā. But Lord Chaitanya revealed only one chapter, the 5th chapter. And in the very first statement that Brahma makes, he said of all the controllers, that Krishna is the supreme controller. And he has an eternal form of knowledge and bliss. And we can understand that form and those energies by the strength of our love for the Lord. And that love, as I've mentioned, is awakened by the process of devotional service. And Prabhupada explains in the Purport that this is the greatest mystery. That how can the devotees see God everywhere? How can they understand His presence everywhere? And it is by this premanjana, this love between the devotee of the Lord and the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And the activities, the expression of that love by service between the Lord and between the devotees and the Lord. And the Lord, He doesn't need our service. He's Atmarama. He's completely self-satisfied and sufficient. But to expand His own enjoyment, He manifested the living entities, us. And then He manifests the material energy to give the fallen souls who want to compete with the Lord a realm, a field of activities in which we can pretend that we are the supreme controller. Prabhupada says that first the living entity, when he comes to the material world, he tries to be the supreme enjoyer. And when he sees that ultimately not possible, then we want to become the supreme controller. And then when we find, well, I can't be the supreme controller, so let me control the husband thinks, let me control my wife. The wife knows better. She says, I control my husband. And everybody is thinking that I'm the controller. And we all have our sphere of influence and responsibility. But ultimately, the Lord is the supreme controller amongst all the living entities. And the nature of the material world is that we're competing with one another for enjoyment, for controlling, for power, for supremacy. Whereas in the spiritual world, the nature is we cooperate with one another for the pleasure of the Lord. Still there is competition in the spiritual world, but the competition is based on who can best serve the Supreme Personality of Godhead, whose services, whose activities are most pleasing to the Lord. And then instead of being envious, we help one another, we serve one another. And so we have to change from our conditional mentality of competing to that of cooperating. And that's why Srila Prabhupada named every one of his disciples so-and-so das, so-and-so dasi. And he instructed us repeatedly that we see everyone as our Prabhu, as our master. Because if I understand that you are my master, I'm not your master, and so the natural relationship is that I serve you. But to serve you in a Krishna conscious manner, to help you become Krishna conscious, to help you overcome misconceptions of who we are and what to do and what not to do. And so therefore, to accomplish that, Srila Prabhupada has established this International Society for Krishna Consciousness, and Lord Chaitanya has established the principle of Harinam Sankirtan, where we go out and we publicly chant the Maha Mantra. And he says, to everyone you meet, you simply explain to them who is Krishna and what is their relationship with the Lord. And most importantly, we live that philosophy. We mold our life in such a fashion that our every activity, our every breath, our every thought is centered around pleasing the transcendental senses of the Lord. That's why Srila Prabhupada repeatedly used the word dovetail. Or we take our desires, it's not possible to become free from desires. It's not possible. So we take our desires for enjoyment and we dovetail them into the service of the Lord. Dovetail them meaning, okay, I have an attachment for this particular activity. Instead of doing it for my pleasure, I'm going to do it for the pleasure of the Lord. And it takes a little bit of intelligence to understand how to apply this principle in our day-to-day lives. Therefore, we have the association of devotees, so we can understand how to take our bad habits and turn them into good habits. How to take forgetfulness or forgetfulness of Krishna and absorption in the material energy and convert that into absorption in the service of the Lord. So, this verse, Krishna is explaining that although he is within everything, he is also simultaneously separate from everything. And he does that by, let me go back to the verse here, by expanding his energies. And through his different energies, which are all completely transcendental and spiritual, he creates the entire material manifestation. And through those energies, he enters it. But those energies are simultaneously one with Krishna and different from Krishna. They are Krishna's energies. He controls all of them, but they are separate from him. So therefore, he is saying to Brahma, I simultaneously enter the cosmos, but I'm separate from it. My energies are there, acting under my supervision. But I have nothing to do with them. Just like a CEO, the executive of a corporation, the owner of a corporation, he is, by his desire, the whole process of whatever it is, manufacturing is taking place. By his instructions, by his will, by his energy, it's going on. But he's not doing everything. He's got his office where he's overseeing other things. So exactly the same way, Krishna, he is simply enjoying in the spiritual world, and through his different energies, this entire material, all the spiritual worlds are also manifested in activity are taking place by his desire, and also within the innumerable universes, all the activity are taking place under his guidance. And he is simultaneously here and not here. And so it's a little difficult to understand. As I said, these four verses, 33, 34, 35, and 36, are the summation of the entire Srimad Bhagavatam. So they're difficult, especially for me, who have very little knowledge, very difficult to understand what they speak of, explain. So I'll stop here, read the translation again. O Brahma, please know that the universal elements enter into the cosmos and at the same time do not enter into the cosmos. Similarly, I myself also exist within everything created, and at the same time, I am outside of everything. Thank you very much. Any comments, questions, corrections? Bhagavad Gita Guru.
Earlier you mentioned how out of the many thousands of different body types for human beings, that many of them you said were animalistic. Could you explain how and why that is?
The how of it, according to the Vedas, is animals have four characteristics. They eat, they sleep, they mate, and they defend. And their entire existence does not go beyond these four activities. In no way, they have no philosophical nature, they have no attachment for music, for the fine arts. Their entire consciousness is absorbed in those four activities. And the vast majority of human beings are like that, because they either have no knowledge of anything further, or they have no interest of anything further. They simply, and it's not as crude as animals. Prabhupada says, he uses the term that they're more polished animals. Instead of sleeping on the street like the dogs do, we sleep in a simple house or a huge mansion. Sometimes we have many homes, according to our wealth. But we're just sleeping, just like the dog on the street. Or we're eating. Those who eat food which is not offered first in sacrifice verily eat only sin. Krishna says that very clearly. And Prabhupada elaborates that if we eat food that is unofferable, or even foods in the mode of goodness that are not offered to the Lord, we're engaging in sin. If we have sexual relationships based simply on the pleasure of the senses and not for the purpose of creating and raising Krishna-conscious children, we're living life like the dogs and the cats in the street and the hogs. So that's why the Vedas say that although there's 400,000 species of human life, 400,000 different forms, real human beings don't begin until one accepts the principles of the Vedas, which begins with atato brahma jigyasa. Why am I here in this material world? Why do I have to suffer? Why do I have to grow old? You're young. I'm sure you got great health. I remember when I was young, and I felt invincible. I could do anything. And now the body I have a different body, and I'm weak. I don't have the same energy. So until we begin to inquire, who am I? Who is God? What is my relationship with God? Why do I have to grow old? Why am I forced to suffer? Why do I have to eventually die? Until we come to that platform, we're simply animal in a human form. And that is the greatest misfortune. Why? Because we have the opportunity to hear about the glories of devotional service. We have the opportunity to engage in Krishna consciousness. But if we don't accept that opportunity, then we are the most unfortunate. It's like that. That makes sense? We all have an enjoying spirit. Why? Because we're tiny particles of God, and He's the supreme enjoyer. So it's natural for us to want to enjoy and to try to enjoy. It's natural. But if you ask the heroin addict, do you really enjoy injecting yourself with this poison into your body? He is totally convinced, or she is totally convinced, that it is the highest pleasure. And when they are injecting that drug, all of us know that it's poison, and it will simply kill us. But they're completely convinced that there's nothing superior to this. The illusory energy is so strong that it compels us to kill ourselves in the name of enjoyment. It's amazing. It's really amazing. And try to convince that drug addict that what you are doing is not only is it bad for yourself, but you're killing yourself. On one level, they'll understand. Just like people who are addicted to smoking cigarettes. They know, I could very well get cancer from doing this, and this activity could very well kill me. But I like it. It gives some pleasure to one of the more of the senses. It gives some conception of pleasure to the mind. Because we are pleasure-seeking entities. But we have to know what is real pleasure And we have to know what is actually pain, what's the word? Disguised as pleasure. Yes, the heroin addict is enjoying in a particular manner, on a particular level, but that type of enjoyment is extraordinarily detrimental. So we have to understand what is detrimental to our own real interest and what is beneficial. And the only thing that is beneficial is the process of Krishna consciousness, which separates real humans from animals in a human form. It's a great mystery. Beautiful question. Thank you. Anyone else? Clarification? Question? If there are no more, then we will conclude here. Thank you all very much for coming, for your kind attention, participating in this class. There's many other activities you could have done this weekend, this past hour, but instead you came to New Vrindaban. Thank you very much. We sincerely hope that you have enjoyed your time here, that you have taken spiritual benefit, and that you'll bring that benefit home with you. And how do we do this? By bringing some of the books behind me home with you, and reading them, trying to understand them, connecting with devotees who work in the Congregational Development Department. Their offices are right out here, behind this class. Connect with them. Give them your contact information so that when you leave, when you're at your home, you have connection with devotees here, and you can understand further how to progress in Krishna consciousness. This is the purpose of these large temples. Prabhupada created these large temples, specifically New Vrindaban, Mayapur, Vrindaban, Bombay, others around the world, so that you can learn the process of Krishna consciousness, how to practice it when you're at your school, when you're at your home, when you're at your place of work. Because very few of us can live within these communities, because we have so many obligations and duties. So it's really difficult for us to practice Krishna consciousness when we're outside of these temples. So make connections with the devotees. Get and give your contact information, and keep in touch. Thank you all so much. Grantharaj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Radha Vrindavan Chandra ki jai. So it is now prasadam time, which I am assuming is in the downstairs of the lodge.
Grace for Shakti Das ki jai.